Welcome back to part 2 of our story on Maina Njenga and the infamous Mungiki sect. In this video, we are focusing on the Mungiki sect's role in the 2007-2008 post-election violence in Kenya. This is a story of political manipulation, ethnic tensions, and unimaginable tragedy. Let's dive into this gripping and complex tale. December 27, 2007. It was election day in Kenya and citizens turned out in large numbers to vote for their next president. The initial results seemed promising for Raila Odinga, leader of the Orange Democratic Movement (ODM). His lead in the vote count gave his supporters hope. But as the final results trickled in, something shifted. Moi Kibaki, the incumbent president and leader of the Party of National Unity (PNU), closed the gap, and eventually he was declared the winner on December 30, 2007. Within hours, Kibaki was hastily sworn in at State House, a move that left many Kenyans stunned. Accusations of electoral fraud spread like wildfire. Raila's supporters were furious, and protests erupted almost immediately. However, this wasn't just a spontaneous reaction. The violence that followed had deep roots and careful planning that went back at least a year before the election. As early as December 2006, ODM leaders allegedly began preparing for a scenario where Raila lost the election. Two prominent party leaders, along with a Kalenjin language radio presenter, are said to have coordinated plans to attack PNU supporters. The radio presenter used coded messages to rally their supporters in the Rift Valley. The goals were twofold: to consolidate power in Rift Valley province and to expel PNU supporters from the region. When Kibaki was declared president, these plans went into action almost immediately. Roadblocks appeared overnight across the Rift Valley. Towns like Tarbo, Eldoret, Kapsabet, and Nandi Hill were targeted. Homes and businesses belonging to perceived PNU supporters were destroyed, and innocent people were brutally attacked. The violence in Eldoret culminated in one of the most horrific events of the post-election crisis, the Kiambaa Church massacre. On January 1, 2008, dozens of Kikuyu families who had fled their homes took refuge in a church in Kiambaa, but this sanctuary became a death trap. Attackers surrounded the building, doused mattresses and blankets in petrol, and set them on fire. Flames engulfed the church as men, women, and children were trapped inside. Those who tried to escape were hacked to death with machetes or shot with arrows. 17 people burnt alive inside the church, while others died later from their injuries. This horrific act shocked the world and highlighted the depths of the crisis. As the violence against PNU supporters escalated, retaliation was inevitable. On January 3, 2008, leaders of the outlawed Mungiki sect reportedly met with senior government officials to plan counter-attacks against ODM supporters. The Mungiki, a Kikuyu-dominated group, had originally emerged as a movement advocating for the landless and dispossessed, but over time, they became infamous for their brutal tactics, including extortion, murder, and forced female genital mutilation. During the post-election violence, Mungiki fighters targeted ODM supporters in places like Nakuru and Naivasha. Retaliatory attacks were brutal, with victims being beheaded or burned alive. The Kenya police, instead of intervening, often turned a blind eye or used excessive force against ODM protesters, killing over 100 people in areas like Kisumu and Kibera. To understand the 2007-2008 violence, we must look at Kenya's history. During the colonial period, the British displaced Kikuyu people from their ancestral lands, forcing them into reserve. Many Kikuyus later migrated to the Rift Valley, creating deep-seated ethnic tensions over land ownership. These divisions were exploited by politicians for decades, and by 2007, the stage was set for the kind of violence that unfolded. Mungiki's involvement was deeply tied to this history. Inspired by the Mau Mau freedom fighters of the independence era, Mungiki claimed to fight for Kikuyu rights. However, their methods were often violent and criminal. Politicians leveraged the group's discontent to manipulate them into becoming enforcers during the election crisis. By the time the violence subsided, more than 1,300 people had been killed and over 600,000 were displaced. The international community, led by former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan, brokered a peace deal that resulted in a power-sharing agreement moment between Kibaki and Raila, but the scars of the violence remain. Today, fears of a Mungiki resurgence have resurfaced. With Maina Njenga, the group's leader, back in the public eye, many Kenyans worry that the sect's dark legacy could return. This chapter of Kenya's history serves as a reminder of how political manipulation and ethnic divisions can lead to unimaginable suffering. Thank you for watching. If you found this video insightful, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Stay tuned for more investigative and educational content as we delve into stories that shape our world.